Kumaxesha abuhlungu anganikithemba nampumelelo ndafundiswa ngonayilo lunomdakazana
Feminism and sexuality.
There would be serious cases.
He lied. He locked me inside the house.
It's created within those dark spaces, but those are spaces I think I also enjoy. When you speak about that light, sometimes there's not even light, but you actually want to be there.
To depart from our usual format and bring you in-depth documentaries on the arts. Tonight we have a study of the South African artist Judith Mason Atwood, her thoughts, her philosophies, and of course her paintings. Do enjoy it.
For you know only a heap of broken images. And I will show you something different from your shadow at morning striding behind you, or your shadow at evening rising to meet you. I will show you fear in a handful of dust.
I was watching a lot of TV, so feeling guilty. So, and then I had been going to the library all the time, looking at books, and then I came across books on weaving, making jewelry, using beads, using wire. So I tried all of those things, and then the beads stuck in a way, because also enjoyed ceramics a lot more than painting when I was doing my undergrad. It's just that I didn't continue with ceramics because of studio space, and couldn't afford at the time, the equipment as well. So I think if I were doing ceramics, maybe I would be saying something different about that in relation to the beadwork and the paintings and the writing, because that's also another medium I use a lot.
You have a tendency to veil your face. Right? Do you have a sentimental value with being hidden as an artist? Does that fascinate you, the hiddenness of your face?
It does, because don't know, because how I see my career, I would like my work to be known more than I am known. So it's not about me being seen out there than about the work itself.
Beading, to me that's something very typical, very female, very women, you know. I mean, it has been, there is, I would say, thousands of years, you know. I mean, it's a very, very female tradition. How do you think about that? Is that important for you, that you like working in that sphere, in that energy field of this beading, the women work?
You're making me think about it now, because that's the history. No, you know, even when you read about tapestry, in most of the collections that you see in museums, it's usually women collectives sitting together and doing that work. And I haven't gotten a chance to be in a collective like that or in a space like that. But I know there's a colleague of mine, Uzodwa Tudani. She did a research on that based on the Eastern Cape, where she, as part of her master's research, she was in that space with the women. It's not only about the beadwork, it's about storytelling, it's about them taking care of their grandchildren, it's about them creating a community for themselves. And she exhibited those works that they create there and some of the discussions that they were having. So, yeah, I'm aware of that space, I can say, but it's just that I'm not a part of it, I guess. No.
You don't find masks fascinating?
No, I've never played around with masks. I don't even collect them. No. I don't have that reference, but I see the work that you're speaking about with her, because even my first encounter with her work was based on the buffalo mask, when she did a performance at the Point of Order in Joburg, yes.
Would you say this is meditative for you?
Yeah, a lot. At first it was overwhelming, because you're thinking about everything and anything. Then adjusting to that is important. And I think adjusting to it, I treated it like ceramics, because in ceramics you'll never manage to produce anything if you are too emotional or feeling stressed.
Generally, I need music. Christina doesn't do music. She's lucky. I think she uses a lot of silence when she edits. But you like silence when you do your work. Okay.
I use a lot of silence. I don't play music a lot, so I'd rather listen to. I'm listening to a lot of YouTube, like these podcasts. I've asked you about meditation for those reasons. So I listen to those motivational talks, and I can't watch documentaries because I'll have to focus on the visuals as well.
From the silence, you draw your creativity.
I can say that from the silence. The silence means a lot. You hear the birds, you hear what's happening outside, you hear the guys on the other side as well. And then make connections. So silence is, yes, a connection with God. That's why even when I am praying, I can sit here and pray, or as I'm working on something, that's prayer to me. So I don't have to go and kneel to know that I'm asking for something from God, or I'm thanking Him for something. So as I'm speaking to you or having a conversation, you can say something, and then in my mind I'm having a conversation and I'm being thankful. Or asking questions, why is he saying that? Why is So it's like, because there's this work I was doing with a friend as well. It's like that that talk on the mirror, you know, when you're by yourself. So I stopped doing those talks, and now they're happening in my head.
My interest in specifically feminism and sexuality. I was interested in a kind of sexuality, a feminism in which sensuality and sexuality was embraced.
Taking only a stance and taking only a step by much.
No one believed me because he has already spread their lies.
Old woman with a 15-year-old daughter. They were just butchered alive by someone who, just an intruder, because it was at night.
You will be a statistic. We are tired of women becoming numbers. We are tired of women becoming passing shadows.
What that site looks like, you know, already they're saying it might be sensitive to viewers, but thinking about a body that has been burnt and dumped, you know, as a passerby, you wouldn't know, you know, what was there. But at the same time, the people who find the body, I'm sure since they're professionals, they can see what sort of residues are there in terms of body parts. Bringing things like earrings into the work as objects that usually are used to identify if this is the right identification of a family member. And in that moment where the family is sort of relieved in a way that it could be the body, when there's no body at the same time because it has been burnt. So I'm saying that's where, that's usually what the perpetrator uses to cover the body in order to go discard it somewhere. So yeah, it's an old duvet cover to show the fact that it has been used and reused for the longest time. It has a story to tell on its own. It has many stories in terms of in relation to the bed, because that's also another work I'm interested in. As part of this exhibition, a bed called home. Our relationship with our beds, you know, from a young age. So you can see even the structure itself. It's a bed. It's a grave.
So do you associate beds with graves?
No. No, not in the literal sense. But there's a lot of emotions attached to a bed. I mean, it's a space where you rest, of course. It's a space where you sleep. It's a space where you find your peace. It's a space where you relax. But it's also a space where that can be violent.
Died. Police finally resorted to live ammunition.
It's a space where people die as well, you know, when a family member is taken from a hospital to their bed, their last resting space, the bed, yes. I guess it's a grave as well.
It's almost like whole life, no? You get born, usually in some sort of a bed. It's a cycle of life.
You tend to fuse a lot of words with either pictures or, you know, different mediums. What do the words to pertain to here with regarding this piece?
I found the prayer book and then I started reading on this page, and like words where I was highlighting words in my head, like ones that I've heaven, forever, in relation to the sentences as well. You'll see I've cancelled Jesus. Jesus still carries his scars, Bible. Yeah, not to give it one idea in terms of who do we pray to, Because now I was reading it, seeing that line where it says, "See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands." You know, I saw grave, engraved, grave, and all of that. So it could mean something totally different today than it was when I first encountered it.
So what could it mean today?
I guess we are all protected. Regardless of how you live your life, there's always something shadowing and protecting you, whether it's angels or whatever you believe in. At the same time, there's a grave waiting for us that is engraved with our names. And that doesn't have to be that fancy stone, you know, cold stone that is put over your grave. It could be on anything. So I guess not being afraid of death as well, it's something very important.
I personally wouldn't want to put the picture in my house, which reminds me of the femicide. It's you're going to a very dark place.
To reflect. So it has made me more aware, actually, on a daily basis, how the issues of gender violence affect us. And what we see and how we listen, how I listen, I guess, because somebody might not have thought about, you know, what I thought about, you know, reporting on femicides affect every one of us daily. It doesn't matter whether it's a person who is in Bloemfontein, but the fact that it's reported and you're made aware about it. So we are connected to it. So yeah, and also it's not to, I don't know, it's a very sensitive topic as well. And it's it's also difficult to interpret, to say you're making an artwork based on somebody's life that was taken away in a brutal way. So but at the same time, it could be me.
Like to hear said about any work I do is that it makes that sort of democracy of shared pain and therefore shared responsibility with all other sort of life forms clear. I would like, I guess, to have my picture sort of wiring up the spectator's nerve ends. I'm not part of any movement that I can easily identify with. I just pinch little bits as they seem to nourish my own painting. But my painting is very untrendy in the sense that I don't follow a trend and I don't feel I have to communicate with other artists in order to find out where I'm going. I'm hunting some little images and apprehensions that have been in my head for as long as I can remember.
It's just maybe open. Yeah, I'm submitting this for the novel Sovereign Prize, so just for the gallery to keep it. I'm also bringing works for the Sculptex, which is coming up next month. Okay. Okay. And I submitted this as part of the residency I did at UJ with the Gen V project. So it's about childhood stories, girlhood, menstruation. Also, the idea behind it was mainly the Christmas dress of mine that disappeared, and that all brought into these other experiences about girlhood, but mainly menstruation. Okay. So that's why the title is Ndia Mensa Mama.
And why the bow? Is it to symbolize the girlhood, but also the fact of becoming a woman at the same time? Because it's also very fragile at the same time as because to bead is also very, it relates to, how do I say, like a form of womanhood, but at the same time, to have a bow, it's very playful at the same time, but also very ladylike, but put together in a way that everything has to be kept tight.
Even how you're holding it, how you are guided into being a girl, into a woman, and how you should conduct yourself. So we're constantly being corrected as young girls on how to sit, on how to dress.
Does it speak to you? What she said, about the menstruation and going public with something which is really very private?
Yes, I think it does, because I think that we always try to plan how it would be like when you become a woman, but you can't plan it, And I think that entering and becoming a woman, it isn't necessarily as graceful as people might say it is. And we try to create so much grace around it, but it's the most rawest state of being a person or a human, I believe, because that moment where you shed and just know that, okay, this is the next moment of my chapter, or the next moment of my becoming.
Yeah, I like the shadows. Solo exhibition at the Cape Town Art Fair in February, Nokolite Sentimental Value. So that body of work mainly references the curtain, and I use, those are curtain rails, what is it? Blinds. So the idea of covering and uncovering, but also being on the other side of the curtain and looking out. I think I'm connecting that also to my home, and how we always saw a person coming in, it's a lace curtain coming in and you look outside. So I question Nokolite, how did you feel about that? We always knew that people are looking at you on the street as you walk down, because that's how curious we were as neighbors.
Keep us so near while apart. I'm not alone in the night when I can have all the love you write. I memorize every line. I kiss the name that you sign.
The individual letters and what they look like, that's just like a prompt to make something happen. Individuals receive the letter, the confusion that they have, like, why is this being written to me? Who am I going to think of? What is this?
I was thinking mainly about myself, you know, different, I journal a lot, so as I was writing, a lot of questions were coming in about where I come from and all of that. But at the same time, I started thinking about Nogolide, who was our neighbor in Amtata, older than me, and tall, dark-skinned, like very confident, very vocal, outspoken, you know. And I was like, okay, I'd like to ask Nogolide some questions about herself. Where did she find this confidence? You know, and more especially as a young girl who was darker skinned than all my siblings as well. So, and I was teased at home. So I was thinking about her, but at the same time answering myself. It could have been her mom, you know, encouraging her. It could have been her sisters, you know, as an older sister, she saw herself as somebody who has an important role to play for her younger sisters. Because in my head there was letter writing, so I wanted to write a letter to Nogolide. And I kept telling myself in my head, it's a letter to Nogolide. My mom got her phone number, but I still wanted to write a letter because I grew up writing letters. But I never got to writing the letter, the actual letter as I'm working. So, and I think for the longest time, I then realized it's not actually about Nogolide, me writing a letter to Nogolide even. And the questions I'm going to be asking are questions I should be asking myself. That's when the whole body of work turned. It was about how I saw myself growing up, how I saw my self-esteem. Your face is literally not showing. And some of them you like, some of them you hide in your album. So I realized I still carried those emotions and feelings and thoughts about myself within those photographs. So as much as now as an older person, I'm able to build my confidence in different ways, but I realize, no, actually there's still so much I need to unpack. I produced the artwork based on myself as Unokolite, so I started being Unokolite myself. But with this particular artwork, still, it was a hope that I can speak to Unokolite, I can still write to Unokolite and have this conversation with her, and not actually use her in my work, but just to sit down and write her a letter, send it, and then have a conversation with her.
Would you say that empty rectangle is the empty letter?
Visually, you'd say that it's empty. So it's almost looking like an envelope, you know, so like with a stamp and all of that, and an address, and to Nogolite. But at the same time, I see it as then you opening it up in order to read what is inside.
You use a lot of golds and reds in your paintings. What is your affinity with those colors?
At the same time, thinking about sentimental values, sentimental memories, things that we treasure and all of that. And then I gravitated towards the color gold. And then as I was making the paintings, different elements, like it's even copper, that comes up, and yellow ochre, a sugar bush in our village, there's red soil. So the smell of red soil, the feel of red soil on my feet, as your hlagule garden. So yeah, and sliding down the soil. So it was me getting a sense of the soil, the taste of the soil, the smell of the soil, the feel of the soil. In relation to red, but also the blood, spilled blood in relation to Umcimbi.
Mrs. Nowailet Mbizweni of Ngoko village above Lumko. Today, the 2nd of October 1985, same as the earlier recordings. She is a diviner.
the taste of the soil, the smell of the soil, the feel of the soil.
I think one of my favorite series from you is Imbi. Did I say it correctly? Imbi, for me, when I first saw the paintings, lots of reds, lots of shredding, but Imbi kind of seems like a ritual. Isn't that what it means? It means ritual.
Growing up, as girls, we were told not to go to the crown. Whenever there was a ritual, we were told to stay away. And then after, but my brother, my younger brother, he could go in, because it's men in that space. So I didn't understand that for the longest time. And at the time, asking questions, you did not get answers, it felt like those are not questions you should be asking. Why am I not going into the crowd? And then when I was doing this project in my undergrad at TUT, when I started documenting the goat skin, sheep skin, it was only after a ceremony had taken place. So one day they were slaughtering in the crowd, so I was outside documenting that and just listening as well. And then my uncle said, let me go in, because it was in my home. I'm like, no, you guys told us not to go in, why should I go? Like, no, it's your home, so you can go inside. And I still resisted. So it was speaking to that, like now being inside the crowd and seeing the whole process of slaughtering, the technique that is used, who's supposed to slaughter, where the men sitting, but just seeing the animal, like I spoke about the blood as well in relation to the soil. The richness of those artworks, it's not, I don't think it's even the red, as you see the artwork as a finished piece, right? It's what is happening underneath those artworks. So the reds, I think it was it's one of these eclipses, man. I did not know about it, but I started Googling, and then it was about the moon and the sun coming together at some point. So that's what I started with. So it was just drawings of that process. So the reds are coming from underneath, not from what you see.
Stories of the soul kind of lead to that as well. Is it about the bodily experience of women?
It was coming from the same project. Okay. But looking at, there is a spiritual side to red and white. As well, so somebody else will see something different in relation to those works. Even myself, I acknowledge the red and white in that in those artworks as something outside of, even it's not even it's not two different ideas, if I can say, menstruation, let's say, in relation to the sacredness of the colors red and white, right? Because I think with all rituals, like even rites of passage, they're sacred. There's a lot that happens, that takes place there outside of just this physical object that we have as outside. But a lot happens within a person. A lot happens within a person in connection to how you pray, in connection to how you praise, in connection to how you revere, in connection to ukupahla.
Because when I look at the red dress, right, and we spoke about some of your influences being Judith Mason, I think of the blue dress that you painted. Were you mirroring Judith Mason in that regard?
I did share with you, I'm inspired by her work, and it's not work I look at on a daily basis, so once in a while. So after I'd made the dress, that's when I made the connection. Yeah, that's when I made the connection after the dress was done. But I'm always making that connection with the artworks, with the paintings as I'm working. Sometimes she comes into my mind. Okay, how do I treat this line?
So what is the red dress?
The red dress,
What would you say is the main theme that you want your audiences to leave with when they view your art, such as the red dress or a title?
I think it's their own personal relationship they develop with the work. Because different viewers see different things and they feel different things, and sometimes they come back to you later on and actually expand more or say more about how they felt in hindsight. So there's no one takeaway. Even myself, when I look at the work 2 years later, it's always telling me something different. So there's no one way I'd say I'd like the viewer to see the work except enjoy it for what it's saying in that moment. And more especially those who have collected my work, for whom I'm really appreciative of. I'm yet to hear many stories about what the work is doing in their space and the relationship they've built with the artwork since acquiring it.
You know, when you had the discussion about the dark horse,
Of course, it's a particularly interesting race this year, with no five-star favourites like Barham to dominate the occasion. And as they parade, the Derby still preserves the parade, there are half a dozen almost equally fancied candidates for the highest honour of the turf. Mrs. Shand will be the first woman to win a Derby at Epsom.
But she was the dark horse who suddenly topped the university. Ashok was the backbencher, but as a dark horse, he got the first prize. Ramesh was a dark horse. He won the first prize in singing. और छुपा रुस्तम या उम्मीद के विपरीत, सेंटेंस इन हिंदी। सीता को कोई नहीं जानता था, लेकिन वह छुपा रुस्तम निकली, विश्वविद्यालय में प्रथम आई। अशोक हमेशा पीछे बैठता था, लेकिन वह बड़ा छुपा रुस्तम निकला, प्रथम पुरस्कार उसे ही मिला। रमेश बड़ा छुपा रुस्तम निकला, उसने तो गायन में सबसे बड़ी
That's hard science, that's hard science, that's hard science, that's hard science.
In Mother and Daughter, that where you performing as a you're contorting your body, you're moving your body a lot. The first time I saw it, I was captivated. I think I told you this, because not only was there your body moving, I can't see your face, but there's also these hoarse sounds with a lullaby from your mom that you sang. Let's first unpack that. What is the lullaby first that your mother was singing when you were young?
Oh my. So the lullaby, it was only when I asked her. So for the longest time, it made me uncomfortable because it was saying, "Donomtakazana, damfumana nylon." This dark one, I got it because of nylon. And my sisters and my cousins used to tease me about being the darker child. But my mom used to sing this song, and whenever she sings it, she's not singing it in the same way that I'm teased by my siblings, but they will take the song and use it to tease me. So she's always been singing the song, and then I asked her, and that's when she explained that it's a song her neighbor or this man in the village used to sing for her daughters as a way of, I don't know, I guess he was admiring his horse. So the horse, is the name of the horse is Nylon, it's a dark horse. So he'll be on his horse coming back home and singing the song for her daughters to tell them that, okay, everything that I'm doing is with this horse. Everything I'm doing with you, but it's also with this horse, Nylon. So yeah, that was her explanation. And then I asked for her to sing the song. That was even way before I thought about this project. So she did, and then I kept the recording. And then when I did the ICA performance, I included it in there.
Oh my.
Be playing around with the camera and seeing what I can bring out. And then I was still not happy. And then I started playing songs just as I was packing. And I started dancing, you know. And I was taking off, like, undressing at the time to go bath. And then that's when I was like, okay, let me just go try once more and see what happens. So I was with my back to the camera. So, and then seeing that, I don't know, the work moves me as well whenever I look at it. And it's even it's close as well, like my back. And seeing my back, like, it's a part of your body that you never pay attention to. At the same time, in relation to the title, Ukuzala Uzelula, is like to give birth, is to stretch yourself. It's to stretch yourself, basically. You're giving birth to...
Oh my.
This industry, I mean, there's a lot, man. If you don't know yourself, you get lost easily. Even when you know yourself, you'd find yourself lost in other people's lives, mainly, but also in the spaces where we meet up. So, and I was never looking for popularity in a lot of the spaces. And you'll find that I'm hiding even when I'm in those spaces where we're meeting or just sitting, having dinner, drinking, and all of this stuff. So I think it's something that I guess I do myself intentionally, not because people are not paying attention, because you become very visible in moments like that too. So, and I think it helps me to be a dark horse in that way, because I get grounded when I'm making my work. I don't create ideas based on what I know is happening out there or who's doing what. And yeah, even when I'm away, I'm able to stop myself immediately. And of course, there's also people who, not everybody will like you, not everybody will like what you're doing. That's one thing I've understood as well. And it's okay.
Oh my gosh.
Gender-based violence and all that pertains to that. Why inside you, not what's going on objectively, why are you interested in this subject?
Why is this subject interested in me?
What is the magnetic pull towards the subject and the subject's magnetic pull towards you?
You know, we're all close to the subject. Our experiences are not the same. So one thing I learned a lot from in relation to gender-based violence was when there was the rape protest at Rhodes University. And you only get educated by your peers in life. So, and, you know, understanding rape and violence from a space where it's a stranger, it's somebody you don't know the close magnitude of how things that you felt uncomfortable about actually were places where you've been violated yourself. And that includes relationships. With a boyfriend, you know, when you don't want to have sex, or when you're waking up and, you know, where you're feeling like uncomfortable about a situation. And also in relation even to close family members, you know, I remember also waking up at home with my pants to my legs, sleeping. My sister is sleeping on the other bed, and opening my eyes, my cousin is on top of me, you know. And telling that the next morning, I tell my aunt, and she just shut me down. And that person continuing, but it's just that I've always woken up. And it's not even waking up in terms of letting you know that I'm awake, but you find ways of, how do I put it? You hold your body as if you're sleeping and your blankets are tight, and you're constantly doing that now on a daily basis whenever this person is around. But I think the most important thing was them not even talking about it. I've never spoken about it, even to my parents have shared it, because it was cut very quick. So yeah, it reminded me, I think, with all the discussions that were taking place during that time, it reminded one of how much gender violence is not actually based on what is happening outside or what you are fearing that is outside. It actually starts from within your own home. Yeah.
No, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot to share.
Yeah.
You're very brave for sharing. Thank you. You can go.
Dear Nogolide, I have memories of you that have stayed with me for the longest time. I have been emulating you in some ways, actively embodying the parts of you that I remember as a young girl. Selective in how I recall, based on an imagery that is drawn from having to relive in parts the past to inform the present. They are memories I've been exploring in my art making process. These are memories of how I see myself as I reflect and think about who I am becoming. However, the foundation of my narrative appears set in the eyes of those who have told me about myself as a child. My parents, siblings, teachers, friends, even strangers. Here, I am reflecting on lived experiences, the ones I occupy in my everyday life. Dear Nokolite is an artwork I created as a response to someone I grew up with, someone I grew up watching. I am writing this letter as a way of sharing my memories as openly as I can regarding moments with myself that reflect you. Letter writing is also what we grew up doing. That should at least explain why words on paper are more sincere in my mind. The letter is a story of how I am commemorating your memory in the making of an artwork. It is a memory of a past that is recalled, retold, reconstructed, and recollected to convey a multi-layered use of storytelling, layer upon layer of intersecting and overlapping narratives. A story can be repeated and kept open and ongoing, as if to enact memories in motion. Thus, this letter is a story within a story. Am I really looking at myself? Am I seeing myself? Or have I simply evaded the pain of the past in various stages of childhood narratives? These are narratives that have helped me arrive at a larger truth about my brokenness, my pained body. I choose to write with a sense of silence that is filled with sounds, touch, and smells of gestures and behaviors, traces, residues. Am I forcing myself to look into the mirror and attentively see the image reflected in my eyes? The eye's eye, instead of looking at myself in the mirror. The oval mirror with memories is broken. There is a missing piece at the top of its curve. Resemblance. I write this letter as a way of unearthing self, rather than searching for self in order to make realistic changes. A public cry. The fun drink all night till birds sing Philiswa, who set foot in Makhanda 2017 in disbelief that she had arrived at her destination that looks like a burnt sienna, brown, maple and ochre yellow, black and white scene of colors I was familiar with. Became real and grey for 2 years as I moved between Rhodes University's stone cold walls, where all seasons manifested in one day through people's behaviors. I learned so much about human emotions. I wanted to be alone and made sure I was alone when I didn't have to. I almost brutally killed myself with my own thoughts, reminding me that death is within life itself. In fact, I arrived home to my family as a coffin on foot. My mother held me while I curled up in a fetus position for what felt like the first hug I've ever received from her. It remains the only comforting touch I will know through her.